Welcome to Zero Knowledge. I'm your host, Anna Rose. In this podcast, we will be exploring the latest in zero-knowledge research and the decentralized web, as well as new paradigms that promise to change the way we interact and transact online. This week, Guillermo and I catch up with Dev Ojha, co-founder of Osmosis and a longtime ZK researcher. We discuss the story of Osmosis since we last had him on in 2021, as well as the role of Osmosis in the Cosmos ecosystem, an ecosystem which, like many that we've covered over the years, has gone through a boom and a bust. It's introduced pioneering technologies, but also sped-run experiments in proof-of-stake, cross-chain communication, and inspired truly decentralized communities to emerge. Today, the network is significantly smaller than it was when we last discussed it, but it's left an everlasting mark on the shape of today's technology and architectures. So join us for this recap. We then move on to Dev's new work on Zcash and privacy technologies in general. He and the group he was working with made significant contributions to ZK research in the 2019-2020 era, but stepped aside after this to work primarily on Osmosis. Now he's back in the fold, tackling the new challenges and the problems to solve in the recently reinvigorated decentralized privacy space. We are happy to have him back. Before we kick off, 3 quick points. First, ZK Summit is coming back with its 14th edition. Applications to attend are now open. It will be on May 7th in Rome, so I hope to see you there. Second, ZK Mesh Plus, our paid subscription tier, is rolling. We have released a few bonus clips over there, as well as some of our exclusive research reports. If you want to get access, please join the paid tier. Third, if you're looking for other ways to support the show, we have donation accounts visible in the footer of our website. Support definitely goes a long way, so if you do decide to donate, thank you in advance. That's all for now. Links are in the show notes. Now here is our interview with Dev Ojha. Today, Guillermo and I are here with Dev Ojha. Welcome back to the show, Dave.
Hey, thanks for having me back on. It's been crazy. I think last time was day after Osmosis launch.
2021, we looked at this. It was July 2021. We're now talking almost, 5 years later, like almost. So this will be very much a catch-up episode. I think we want to hear more about what's the story of Osmosis since we had you on speaking about that. I do want to highlight one other episode that you did before that. You were in Alessandro's group. You were doing like hardcore ZK systems design research papers. And that's how I first met you. You'd been part of this paper Fractal. Were you part of other work back then? Maybe people might be familiar with?
I was part of Aurora, which is other SNARK work.
Yeah.
And then I helped out Marlin and a lot of the libraries like libiop and ArcWorks.
Very cool. So yeah, I think people are familiar with your work if they've been listening since then. Then you switched over to Osmosis. Yeah, I think what we should do with this episode is do a catch-up. And I know that you've been getting more involved once again with ZK and privacy, so we'll definitely have to touch on that. I want to say hi, Guillermo. How's it going?
What's up? Doing well over here.
How do you guys know each other?
How do we know each other?
Tarun introed us right after Osmosis launch at some point.
That's right.
I just unpinned our Telegram chat, trading CFMM for ZK. I had it pinned on my top of my Telegram for 5 years.
Whoa.
Wait, that's crazy. I totally forgot about that.
I literally unpinned it this morning.
You were just like, oh yeah, this guy sucks. Never mind, I'm out. Honestly, fair enough. I'm with you. Like, totally understand. I get it.
Old research.
That's right. I remember, I think we met at the Osmosis, was it a launch party that you had?
Yeah.
I think that's what it was. And then we just spent like the 2 hours or 1.5 hours talking to each other or whatever.
Yeah, great times.
Yeah. Back in the days. That's crazy.
Nice. All right. So, Dave, I think we are due for catch up. When you were on last, you were launching Osmosis. Osmosis was, and maybe still is, one of the key pieces of the Cosmos ecosystem. However, the Cosmos ecosystem, especially of late, has, changed, has shrank. It's a different world. But I want to go back in time to 2021 and sort of talk about that arc that Osmosis had because, I'm sure it's been a wild ride.
Yeah, it's been awesome. was kind of cool. I think it's a rare moment where kind of everything you've done connects, of like both the fractal work, osmosis stuff, and like being here day after launch and where we are today. So I'm kind of excited to go into it.
Cool.
So we launched Osmosis. Part of the thinking or belief was blockchain had 3 problems at the time: scalability, privacy, and like proof of stake. We had at the time roughly believed we've kind of mentally solved proof of stake, and we know exactly what to do for scalability. It's just a matter of doing those.
Mm.
On scalability, I actually agree. On proof of stake, I think there's one big idea that happened since 2021, which was using like DAG-based proof of stake, or people now call it MCP stuff.
Mm.
But other than that, I also think that proof of stake the shape of it was roughly known in 2021, but privacy was not at all.
Yeah.
So, and privacy, we at the time broke into 2 subcomponents: MEV and anonymity.
So it was privacy at this consensus level, like where validators basically knowing ahead or people being able to front run. This was a form of privacy you would want. And then there was the privacy for the user, which is sort of the way we often understand privacy in the blockchain context. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe today I'd use slightly different words, but that's how we broke it down at the time.
Okay.
So like, okay, we want to let's first solve some MEV stuff, but solving MEV is not a product, a DEX is a product. So this leads us to this app chain osmosis.
Mm-hmm.
And then we always tell ourselves, once we get the like MEV resistant DEX solid and an ecosystem around it, we'll switch back to privacy stuff. So when we talked first, we just launched
the DEX.
Mm-hmm. And then we were actively working on this threshold decryption scheme.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea is that you block MEV you block many class MEV by not letting validators see a user's transaction prior to being available for execution. Like you couldn't reorder or censor someone based off content because you can't see it. So if you could not front run someone on a trade.
But was that part of that initial build, or was that something like an idea at the time?
We didn't launch with it. We wrote papers on it and built libraries for it in collaboration with the NOMA.
Okay.
And then we also designed a change to Tendermint to kind of, you could think of it as the first MCP-like thing. We got this implemented through Tendermint, but there's a bunch of like, kind of a classic Cosmos problem is getting things merged and like ecosystem adopted takes way longer than just writing code takes.
Yeah.
So we had this all done, I'd say within 4 months of launch, code-wise. But then there's a bunch of security stuff, and getting this to an ecosystem standard took like 2 years of delay. So at some point, we kind of deprioritized this threshold decryption part and focus on other MEV solutions. And instead, like go for this path of like, while we launched Osmosis, we actually hit a heavy PMF of this DeFi summit. It's like DeFi season back then, 2021. And then all these Cosmos coins that people were really excited about, like Akash, DVPN, Iris, they had never had a market before. And now getting a DEX makes their product actually usable. So there's like kind of glorious surge of, people started paying for like cloud computers with Akash. People could like acquire Sentinel to do a decentralized VPN and trade Atom and whatnot. So we get a lot of demand on this like DeFi side and like start really focusing on how do we build a DeFi ecosystem, how do you optimize stable swaps.
This is 2021. Yeah. This is also like bull run moment, like 2021, 2022, and Cosmos all of a sudden, like really with the launch of Osmosis, becomes what it said it was going to be, which was this interchain network of different chains, right? Because before that, they were all standalone. Maybe they existed on like centralized exchanges, but they weren't actually attached to each other, as far as I know, until really you guys launched.
Yeah, we're the base of the first usage of IBC.
Yeah.
And at the time, I actually still stand by this. Like, IBC is your best bridge of you go from multi-hour delays on other websites to now you can deposit, withdraw, integrate in one site. The whole thing is done in 10 seconds.
Yeah.
It's way less scary, etc. So now you get this like ecosystem of chains that work together. And then Terra ends up being this killer use case. This is before Terra collapsed.
But this is like looking back, you can see it like a slow motion crash coming. But at the time, people believed that Terra was real and could do what it said it could do, not knowing that there was this like fatal flaw that, could even accidentally be triggered, which caused a full cascade of a stablecoin. So stablecoin is something supposed to be pegged to the dollar, fully decreasing in value and losing kind of everything, and then tanking in a way everything attached to it. So tell me about that experience. Actually, we've never done a recap on that.
So we didn't really appreciate the fact that we were caught up in the UST carry trade somehow. I don't know, it's a bull market. You're like, oh, the product's great. It's numbers going up, volumes going up. We never stopped back to think and stared at, why is there so much UST volume? What is the source? And it turned out that this ended up being the best co-located DEX, because we're not on. There's DEXs on Terra, like Astroport, which had high volumes, but then and there's DEXs on other chains. They have this ETH bridge where there's this Curve 4 pool. And I don't know if people remember that the whole DPEG started when Terra pulled liquidity to switch pools.
Mm-hmm.
So there was stuff on Ethereum, and then there was stuff on Avalanche.
Mm-hmm.
This one's a little bit memory hold, so I don't quite remember the details, but there's some degen box trade, or juice box, I forget the name of it, where there's a high leverage trading strategy that went through Avalanche somehow for yield farming.
This part I don't remember actually. Oh man.
Okay, it's part of the carry trade.
I believe that.
Well, so we look at volume numbers. We thought those were the sources, but it turned out kind of empirically. Oh no, there's actually a lot that was going through Osmosis, and that was part of the huge pump in price, and then volume numbers at the time. So UST collapses. This is almost existential. So there's a couple existential things that happen at the same time. Okay, one, there's no other stablecoin in Cosmos. It was just UST.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Well, we actually were trying to get an Ethereum bridge at the time. What happened is I cared a ton of bridge security. I still do.
Yeah, I remember you guys did a runoff, right? You were interviewing different bridge companies, and who did you end up landing on?
We used Axelar at the time.
Yeah.
And the reason went through governance, but I was actually really proud of this as a reason. What happened is there's 4 competitors. There's Wormhole, but Wormhole just had a $200 million hack on Solana.
Yeah.
There was this team called Gravity Bridge, Axelar, and Nomad, James Presswich's project.
Which also later got a big hack that tanked some other networks. Yeah.
Yeah. So we talked with them all with security, and guys, the bridge is a single point of failure. You cannot have any system where a single bug or single hack can make you go to zero, especially if a lot of money in it.
This is pre-Terra
so you need a rate limit.
fail, I guess, right? Oh,
yes.
wow. So this was your
fail.
focus had been on the bridging. You were like, the bridging's got to be great.
Security.
And meanwhile, you had this disaster token in the heart of what you were doing. Oy.
Maybe 4 weeks pre-crash, we talked about this. I'm like, okay, we need to get the ETH bridge thing finalized, get everyone to finalize this.
But it hadn't quite happened.
No, because we also didn't think the Terra thing with UST was as pressing as it was.
Yeah.
We thought, maybe there's an issue and it could be a slight depeg this year. Not this is imminent.
Mm-hmm.
Days matter.
Man.
So we talked each of things of hey, you need to ensure you can't go to zero. What's your strategy for rate limits? Or something else. Axar is yeah, we agree. We have rate limits in audit right now.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. At the time, all the other projects had some varying answer of no rate limits allowed. So Axelar ended up winning this vote, which is great because there's no way Axelar can have a bug and a user goes to zero.
Mm-hmm.
But this happened 2 weeks too slowly.
Yeah.
And so there's no other stable in Cosmos.
And so people had to switch. I mean, there was probably a mad dash. The volume at the moment of the Terra crash, what was it like for you guys in Osmosis at that moment?
So what happened is all of the Luna assets were internal assets. So Osmosis was the closest DEX that had any other assets you can trade against, any of the liquidity. So there's 2 serious bugs as the crash is happening. One was that there's a Luna runaway mint, because the way it worked was that you could burn UST to get Luna at the peg price.
Yeah.
Well, the amount of Luna supply was massively skyrocketing because it grew pretty slowly and it was constantly more Luna UST exchange, but it crashed quickly and tons of UST tried to get to Luna to sell on a SEX.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So these proof of stake security of Luna was in danger. So we were actually worried about, could this be the first 2/3 takeover of a blockchain network ever?
Oh my God. Did it happen?
There was a bunch of Telegram chats where the Luna validators are basically we point this out as a problem. And then Luna Valor's like, okay, we will halt this chain and upgrade to fix this. So they choose to upgrade. So they organize a hard fork and halt and just stop allowing staking.
Yeah.
And so Luna Classic had that as a thing for years. Then there was a second thing that happened. I'm trying to remember what the cause was, but they basically halted a second time. I think it was to disable the mint function entirely because they were like, guys, this is like not helping anyone. Let's just, we've lost this. Let's not let more UST at like 3 cents become Luna. And so at that upgrade, they close it. And before they relaunch, somebody, this was not anyone from Osmosis, points out that like, guys, what about the Osmosis DEX? You cannot screw over all the DEX users with like more exit liquidity. So they freeze the IVC channels as well. So that was a huge relief for us. It was shocking because we didn't help coordinate that at all. They did it internally. And so from that moment, we had a little bit more like calm.
Okay.
But on our end, what do we do? Well, okay, this is happening. What can we do? We can freeze these pools, these like UST and Luna pools. So if you're an LP, at least you don't go fully to zero. So we build this logic and then like in an emergency, and then get on calls with the community. Like we have tons of voice calls and recordings to show everyone like, hey guys, we need to do an emergency hard fork in order to protect these LPs. While Terra's halted, then we do like basically several series of audits in public on calls with people. So we get a bunch of the Cosmos devs and like SDK devs together to help look at this and get an upgrade deployed in like sub 24 hours. But this is abnormal. This has never happened in like kind of the history of Cosmos. There's never a security bug in that token drain security bug either. So nothing merited like emergency upgrade.
But this did.
Yeah.
Interesting. This, by the way, for listeners who aren't familiar with the history here, Osmosis launches in 2021. This happens in like May 2022, I think, or June.
Yeah, sounds right.
Something like that. And following that, there was the Nomad hack. There's like side note, there was like the Tornado Cash case comes up. And then there was the FTX at the end of 2022.
Yeah.
So those are like the big hits. But this Terra crash was the first. It was the first.
Yeah.
And like it killed major VCs and trading groups. People went to jail and were caught in Montenegro. And
oh, no.
They were extradited to the US. I mean, there's so much. This is like big disaster for a nascent
I feel like
ecosystem.
this is like a good thing to go ask your like local ChatGPT provider, about, because I feel like it's like a weird moment in history that is like kind of hard to synthesize. Nobody has done it super well, but surely.
But weirdly, I mean, that cascade of 2022, 2023 was sort of chill, 2024 was sort of chill, and really it was chill until like end of 2025 when there's another cascade that we have never explored on this show, this October 10th.
10/10.
Yeah, this like, and it caused a whole cascade of activity as well. But in both cases, I guess it was like overinflated ecosystems in a way, overinflated dreams getting totally crushed. I don't know. Sometimes people think it's malicious. I mean, I know with the Terra conversation, there was like claims that it was done on purpose. Same with the 10/10 thing. But I mean, we don't know. But okay, so Osmosis at this time, so you go through this like emergency upgrade. And you're still building Osmosis. You're still looking to like,
Our strategy pivots then, where before this, we were really focusing on like growing Cosmos, cross-chain standards, and a lot of security stuff, like superfluid staking, rate limits, etc. We still take security seriously of like, rate limits, even more important. Maybe we should add those in more areas, like with like for LPs or something, which I can make a tangent, but I think that's still separately a thing that should be done for all lending markets and big pools. Like, hey, everyone should always be able to like exit their DeFi position immediately. But hey, if I have a lending market with 100 million USDC, maybe don't allow 100 million USDC to be withdrawn immediately. If 100 million wants to pull out, de-expose them lending market, but maybe have a queue of like, we have a 24-hour period to like check, was there a security bug? Did North Korea break into someone? Or is like real user activity? Because that's basically what bridge rate limits are. They're that for bridges, you should have that throughout DeFi as a safety mechanism. So we start thinking about a lot of that. But after Terra crash, we pivot to, okay, there's a unique opportunity here to Terra had to build a massive Cosmos ecosystem. At the time, I would argue that this was bigger than the Solana ecosystem 2021.
Wow. Yeah.
This was before the whole like Saber, the Macalito twins are 50 of the projects thing became public.
Also, wasn't there like after Terra an exodus to Solana?
The Terra devs they did a great job of building a developer ecosystem, shockingly. They went to 3 camps. I'd say there's 3 to 4 camps of them. One camp was just glorified anchor wrappers that were basically all kind of grift. There's then there's a lot of people who wanted to Cosmos, and then they switched to either coming onto Osmosis, we did a lot for this, or starting their own Cosmos app chain, or going to like Juno or something. And then the third camp went to Solana. I don't think we saw anyone from Terra go to Ethereum. But someone could correct me on that.
I'm sure there's people who did, but just like in terms of large flows. Yeah,
that wasn't the pattern.
Makes sense. So
then in a nutshell, we go to we tried to make it a very integrated DeFi Cosmos strategy for a while. Then we run into a problem that there's not many new app chains coming up that don't try to be their own DEX. So Celestia launched and very cool technology stuff, but there wasn't too many after Celestia. After Celestia, we got a massive run up in activity for Osmosis and the like. So we have a problem to confront. Where is demand going to be? Before Celestia, we're evaluating very carefully, do we want to do perps or not? And just fundamentally, we decide perps are a winner-take-all market. There exists Hyperliquid, Drift, etc. Hyperliquid was probably really onto this with the strategy, but we disagree fundamentally on you need to be max decentralization. We don't want to play the perps game. There's many things you can imagine your life doing. I'm inspired by privacy. I'm not inspired by building perps. So it's not the game I want to play with my life.
Fair enough.
So we're confronted with what do we do problem. So we start building this very Cosmos-centric or app chain-centric model of the world. We realize users don't want to think about chains. But there's this weird structure in crypto where you are forced to. At that time, kind of the only big cross-chain wallet was Kepler. Phantom had not added any EVM support. MetaMask didn't add Solana support. That was very recent. So none of your big wallets really cross-chain. I mean, technically MetaMask supported the rollups, but it's probably one of the worst integrations ever. So users want to just trade assets in spot. They don't care what chain they're on. So how do we make a UI that can let you come in with any wallet and then trade across every single chain and hold your funds on all these chains? So this is the start of this idea called Polaris. We're going to integrate all these bridges, all these DEXs, and once we get Polaris to succeed, we'll do a lot of work to bring the flow onto Osmosis.
Is Polaris a wallet?
So this is the part of the problem with Polaris. It was very hard to succinctly describe. Because it is in some large sense a wallet that you'd have. It'll be this desktop website where it's kind of your exchange and custody solution.
But would you still use Kepler as your signing wallet or something?
Yes, exactly. This ended up being an idea a lot of people converged on, with the biggest difference being how you do custody and how do you clear the swaps. Where we were pretty clear on all these intent systems don't have any liquidity. All these projects are using their own cap table or trying to purchase, rent liquidity from Wintermute or market makers to be on there rather than, they're being actual normal people feeling these intents. And we actually saw this in practice. Until Zcash pumped last year, there was very little fillers for all these intent systems across chains. But then after Zcash, near intent started getting a lot more natural, more organic filling, more participants come in. It was just hard to get the volume you need to onboard market makers to a new system, especially ones unfamiliar to them. So we start building that out. And come around May last year, I started taking a lot more charge in this and try to make this much more privacy directed. So I set us up on, hey, if we're building this wallet on your behalf, you come with Kepler, come with Ethereum, why don't we keep your funds privately on Namada?
Okay.
And then we can hold anything on Namada, and then you can do a swap in our UI, just like a normal swap, and it'll bridge across to Solana, do a swap there, and bridge back. So to do that, we built this very complex and advanced MPC wallet system, where the MPC wallet would have fully abstract the shielded sync. We'd have the MPC committee in sort of a multi-party way. So actually, I'll explain shielded sync in its own bucket. So solve the hard part of privacy. And then we solve the usability because we'd have this committee do all the bridging and swaps on your behalf, but you as a user did one signature from your existing wallet with some human readable text. And the MPC wallet would affect, in the back end, would follow the text you laid out. So it's like obeys the non-custodial kind of rules. So this would let you kind of have one anonymity system that could do lending, do private swaps across all these chains, which is great. That's 80-20 of kind of all crypto usage.
So was the privacy part the Namada system? Was that where the private things would sit and then the rest would kind of bridge out? Okay.
So we inherited a few problems, though. We inherited a lot of dependency problems. We had to depend on like Namada for upgrades and a lot of third-party bridges. And these two problems ended up being kind of fatal for us.
Yeah.
Where like a week before launch, one of the bridges that was critical to this working, because the market was Solana, this wasn't making commercial sense for them. And it would only make commercial sense if we like massively succeeded. We couldn't guarantee this. So like couldn't get a proper agreement, so that didn't work out. And there was like a upgrade on Namada that was like just couldn't get shipped.
And actually at this point, is Namada even maintained? Like I think it's not as the focus of the company.
Yeah, today Namada's not.
Yeah.
At the time, this wasn't like announced and stuff. So when you see where things go, it kind of makes sense because like a big problem you have is like when ecosystem's in decline, you just can't bet on all these dependencies being there.
Sure.
This whole app chain thing is really exciting if you have, and works great if you have a lot of dependency-less infrastructure. So that's one of the great things about IBC. It's permissionless, so you don't have this problem. But most of the Cosmos bridges from like Solana to Cosmos were not IBC, like they're multi-sig-like.
Sure.
So you have to have, that's a big dependency that has to work.
Yeah. What has happened to the IBC? Like there was a time where like a lot of different projects and chain, like Ethereum was going to have an IBC, or like they were trying to push this idea that you would be able to have the IBC on the Ethereum side as well. Like, would you say that the tide has changed on that now? Like, have people just moved away from IBC completely and moved more towards these like, what are they called? Like these bridges that are now very common where you just have locked on both sides and you have like a market mechanism to like keep people honest.
Yeah. Most of these bridges have ended up devolving to being like very tiny multi-sigs.
Okay.
And then you have a market maker type system to make it fast to transact, better than finality. The market maker system on top is fantastic. The fact that the base has ended up being a multi-sig, basically due to BD and brand reasons, is kind of depressing. That's the exact opposite of what should be the case.
Yeah. So, I mean, it sounds like theoretically, or like your heart is still with IBC, but I want to know about the reality of IBC.
I think the heart is still in IBC, and I think this is like a little bit of skill issue. Like this is just no one owned the go-to-market well of it really, life is like the world's full of path dependencies, and I don't think the path dependency of roll-up to roll-up communication or roll-up to Ethereum is like
good.
I think it's a path dependency thing, not a fundamental thing with IBC.
Okay.
So where you are today, I don't know how you directly win other than like permissionless infrastructure is great and should win if you have a lot of permissionless chains. Now it's kind of, we're not seeing a lot of permissionless chains. You're seeing isolated like corpo chains, a couple big rollups, Solana. Yeah, Tempo, corpo chain. So that these corpo chains are going to be perfectly fine, I think, with like centralized agreements to a multi-sig. They might even prefer that. But unfortunately, the multi-sig bridges won the branding. So now it's somehow a prestigious brand. So as a corpo chain, you're going to prefer that.
What?
Yeah, I would argue like Layer 0 is considered like the good bread for a lot of like USDTs and stuff. Like people want it for the bread.
Or a cross?
Yeah. Oh, so a cross is a fast bridging thing. It's a market mechanism on top that doesn't care what's underneath.
Okay.
Right.
That's actually fantastic. That can apply to anything.
Well, it just like is independent of the underlying layer, right? There's like the market thing is I'll pay some extra fee to do the quick bridging, but somebody else eats both the time risk and also potentially like the bridging risk, depending on how you see it, of the underlying layer actually bridging the thing separately. You also get smart about how you do certain types of bridging and all sorts of nonsense, and that saves you some money, and then you batch a bunch of stuff together and all sorts of stuff. But for the user, the like high level market mechanism is really nice. It's like, look, man, I don't care if I'm paying 10 bips or something on my like bridge. I just want it now.
Yeah, the UX all needs to be fast. Like the UX of too many things in crypto is so slow. So I actually think Across is great. I wish we could do more things to make like the fees lower, but this is like, it's absolutely the right thing.
Sure.
Get markets make us fast.
I want to sort of wrap up the story of Osmosis because I know that you've recently been, I mean, there's news about it, but also there's new work that you've been doing. But I also want to just mention something else kind of that's happening, I think, in tandem, which is like the Terra breakdown, the 2023 shift. You're sort of focused on a new system. Cosmos does get smaller and smaller. There's a Celestia boost, like Celestia launches and it kind of like rekindles a lot of excitement about it. But I remember the narrative after that being like, well, is Cosmos Hub really the center anymore? Is Celestia the center? Would a stablecoin thing be the center? Like, where is the center of Cosmos? Where should it live? So kind of like, what is your postmortem on Cosmos? Maybe it's not over, but like, where are you at looking at where the ecosystem has landed so far?
So maybe around when Skip took over, I was pushing really hard that like, look, privacy is the thing that matters most. There's this opportunity to make Cosmos this like the center of privacy in all privacy apps.
Because it would fit like the spirit of it in a lot of ways.
And in many ways, like a lot of the privacy work in crypto, aside from Zcash, was happening in Cosmos. Like whether like you agree with T's or not, secret network.
Yeah. Penumbra was in Cosmos.
Penumbra, fantastic. And Henry, genius guy, comes to Cosmos, makes his own chain to fix like all of the problems that Shield would think he'd find and get the wallet UX right. Get Namada. A lot's happening like here. And this is like pre-Railgun privacy pools. Oh, okay. I guess when I have these conversations, Railgun has launched. I don't remember the dates of privacy pools. But like I think we could really do a great job. Got the talent. Like this is the thing I'm most passionate about. Details happened, couldn't convince along those lines. I still think this is super valuable. There's several people doing it. Like Aztec, SNARK just announced a lot of privacy work. On the T side, there's a lot of people. But like ZK side, I think these are the two main ones. Well, and like Zcash, of course.
Sure.
So where is Osmosis at today?
So today, we're basically Cosmos systems dying. Like I think aside from Osmosis, almost every chain is announced they're shutting down or like switching to another ecosystem.
End of an era.
Neutron announced they're shutting down this morning, which was the kind of the home of a lot of the permissionless Cosmosm devs.
Yeah.
Wow.
So Osmosis is, I think, in order to save where Cosmos is, what we need to do is merge Osmosis in the hub, get the DEX here, get the permissionless Cosmosm ecosystem happening here. Skip is rather Cosmos Labs, the kind of ICF subsidiary, is trying to get like enterprises to use the Cosmos stack and like try to secure very large BD deals and like support agreements. But in order for that to funnel to like Cosmos tokens and the ecosystem, you have to have a way to kind of capture value from that beyond just an enterprise deal. So we've kind of seen the reliable way to get high amounts of liquidity and volume flowing through to generate revenue is use the DEX. So I think clear thing to do, I think, is acquire the DEX. And then we rebuild the Cosmosm ecosystem on the Cosmos Hub. Now it's permissionless, and the DEX will be co-located again, and like research this from that. And hopefully once that starts succeeding initially, like start doing privacy stuff back on the L1.
Okay.
There's a gap in still of getting a good contracting environment with like native privacy. A lot of people are filling it in now, but I still think it's a gap from where we need to be and where we are today.
Interesting.
Very quick question before we like go too far is where are the actual chains that are currently leaving the Cosmos ecosystem and devs going, out of curiosity?
Devs is kind of an open question.
I
think it's like kind of been sporadic or like it's still secret that a lot of devs have just left crypto.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say there's like a clear nexus of how they've moved. The dev side, chains, I'd say a lot shut down or a lot went to being on one of the Ethereum rollups or Solana directly. More so would be Solana.
Makes sense. Yeah, it feels like Solana is the more aligned of the two ecosystems here and has been for a long time.
Yeah. And I think it's kind of natural when you have a bear market, you need a lot of consolidation. Like, okay, let's not be an isolated app chain where it's hard for capital to flow into. Where one of the bets of Cosmos is that you could have had a lot of capital flowing into new chains easily. And when I think of like logic brain, this seems like it still feels actually correct. Well, just we look at the market reality, that's not been the case.
Yeah.
A lot of like enterprises want specific deals per chain. Getting a custodian for every single chain's a lot of work. It's not a free operation, even though it should be. Explorers are getting a lot better, especially post AI.
Also believe that too. Okay, anyways, now we can finally switch. Sorry, I didn't mean to hijack.
Yeah, so let's now switch over to the work that you've been doing on privacy. We kind of at the start of this episode, we were talking about how the episodes that we did in the past, Fractal and then Osmosis launch.
Yeah.
And actually we did this privacy in Cosmos series of videos. I mean, I remember you guys talking about a lot of the ideas for ZK in IBC or ZK in, no, it wasn't in IBC, ZK in the kind of validator stack and all these things. So kind of how are you tying all of this together? And is Polaris still a thing for you, or are you usually like shifting focus?
No. So, okay, I wrap a through line of Polaris to what I'm doing today.
Okay.
So with Polaris, the dependency risk was too much. Shut down. And I was like, okay, how do we bet on privacy? I had been talking to a lot of the Solana projects in parallel, a lot of the wallets, the devs, and it's this post Zcash pump.
Mm-hmm.
I talked to all these people, but pre Zcash pump, and everyone's like, "Oh, privacy's cute. Doesn't really matter."
Yeah.
I talked to them during the Zcash pump. Perfect. We want privacy now. It's part of our 2026 roadmap.
Nice.
So then we designed like the shielded system for Solana that would solve. There's this big problem in privacy UX, which I should talk about in a second, called shielded sync. We designed a system that would eliminate this on Solana, and I actually got it like built out and demoed. But there's a really big problem. I think the dream that like really changes the world for what we need to be, especially with like AI, global surveillance and whatnot, is to have privacy with like no global master key that could like somehow be activated to decrypt past transactions.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to make that happen, I think you have to like go out about it in a very maximally decentralized way. And so I realized like I just didn't think launching a new thing on Solana is the correct strategy for success. So because that ended up dropping that and therefore this Polaris line of work, but the code is actually ready for that. So that then takes me to what is the most decentralized thing that has privacy at its root and a massive community that would not compromise. That gets you to like Zcash.
Mm-hmm.
So then what I've been doing lately, last few months, is putting a huge amount of energy into, along with other wonderful folks in Zcash. I think you talked to Sean Vo recently. How do we get Zcash to like scale and be incredibly usable? Well, and so I'm focusing on both of those problems, or I guess focus on 3 problems: scale, usability, and like post-quantumness of it. And the usability might have a different definition for me than what maybe expected.
What are you doing with Zcash, though? Have you joined, like, the teams? Or are you contributing? What's happening?
So what I'm doing is started a new company that's effectively, if it's socially sanctioned, a core contributor to Zcash. My general goal is make, like, privacy win, do whatever it takes to help, like, kind of privacy anywhere win.
Okay.
But I'm focusing almost all the time on Zcash directly.
Okay. Why did you choose Zcash and not one of the other privacy systems? Like Aztec just launched, or...
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good question. So I love Aztec folks. Like I don't know, I consider Zach a friend. Zach and Ariel, brilliant and doing stuff for an incredible amount of time. I always think about Zach as like huge for inspiration for just like grit of...
For sure.
But doing Aztec unwaveringly, I think like 7-8 years.
And pro-privacy the whole time. When everyone got scared and cold feet, he stayed with it.
Yep.
Yeah. Awesome guy. I think that the thing that matters to really win is to get a lot of the payment flows to work and build everything on top of that. And then I also think that you either need to be co-located where all the users are, or so like making a new system is really hard, or you have to be something really pure. So one of the things that like is always shocking to me is I was really inspired by several parts of Zcash of like when Zcash pumped, privacy everywhere became the thing. Yeah. And I think that's only possible because what winning looks like is not like, hey, all of payments have this like privacy property, even that's key for like freedom. Winning to me looks like we've inspired like self-owning your data across the entire internet. Like you have local LLMs, all your data is only owned by you, never shared. We start getting people to like just think about metadata leakage in everything they do, self-signing.
Yeah.
I don't see a path for anything that's not super pure winning to inspire that wide movement. Whereas, so I think like if Zcash wins or Zcash like really improves a ton, this has this ability to inspire a lot outside of just crypto. Whereas it feels like very programmable and too finance heavy. It's a muddled message that doesn't spread as far. Like I'm always so shocked at like how successful and impactful Bitcoin is, despite like, look, you can barely even pay on this. The thing they got right was just that like the security of it's not had an incident.
And its message is very pure.
Yeah.
Even if behind the scenes there's like a lot of random miners and blah, blah, blah.
I mean,
there's like a
all
lot
sorts
of
shit,
stuff.
right? But it is
Yeah.
like a messianic message, right? It's just
Yeah.
like brought forth from the Messiah, whatever.
And I also think that like it's really key that we get crypto native currencies to have this, because if you want a privacy property that's really big, it should be something that's like kind of digitally enforced, similar to like, in order to be inspiring, it must be like unwavering. You can't have a bunch of asterisks of like your privacy can be broken if XYZ conditions are met. That's impossible for anything bridged from the real like real world. It's on digital native. Like if you have digital gold, or if you have like Paxos gold, it doesn't matter what anyone tells you. Whatever magical systems you build, Paxos can like say you must dox everything, or else you cannot use this. So you have to get a digital first system to like be inspiring and make this whole movement.
Okay, yeah. So I guess maybe here's a bunch of questions. Number one is, where is Zcash today? How usable is it? Are people using? I remember there was a bit of a run up on it. There's a whole thing.
Yeah.
There's also like a wallet split that's just happened.
Oh, interesting. I didn't even hear about this. I mean, like,
Zodl.
Oh man. And then number two is, okay, what is your dream for Zcash? Let's say you got today to make the philosophical things come true. You wave a wand and things happen. What would it be? But let's start first with, where the hell is Zcash today? I actually have no idea. I mean, no clue, like, whatsoever right now.
Okay, so where are we today with Zcash? Number one problem is kind of usability of this. So you probably had talked about it a couple times in the podcast, like why privacy systems suck to use due to this thing called shielded sync.
I mean, specifically the Zcash model had this like transparent and shielded versions. You had to sort of move and decide where your tokens would live. And I think what I understood from Sean, and we just recently did kind of this history of those wallets and systems. So I don't think I would actually point people to that episode if they want to hear that. But the idea that like every time you wanted to sync your wallet, you'd have to kind of download the entire chain, and you'd have to go through you're running all of the transactions that have happened in the past, meaning like, and I've experienced it where you're trying to open up your wallet you haven't used in a while, and it takes forever for it to be usable. Like you can see it like syncing, and you're like, whoa, this is like hours and hours and hours of time. So that's like been a big issue with that particular system. Now, other privacy systems have other trade-offs, and some of them have been faster, and some of them maybe like when they just launched, they just didn't have that much activity, so they didn't have that kind of delay. They didn't have these long sync times. I mean, I don't think Aztec's built in the same way, so I don't know that its wallets would have the same issue.
If you wanted the same privacy guarantee, it would.
Okay.
Aztec does this trick it's pretty clever. For if I know I'm talking to you, or I've paid you before, and like somehow my wallet can figure this out.
Okay.
Like, I don't know, imagine I have an address book. I paste this in. There's a quick way to resync. Now, I'm unfamiliar with how does this address book work in practice. Like, is there a public directory of all the addresses and it's just not that many, so it's quick, or to enter it? I actually don't know the answer to that. But once I know your address, I can then find all payments between me and you rather easily, which is a very cool property. The way they do it breaks privacy for now, but can be fixed with this technique called private information retrieval, which is actually kind of pretty centric to what I want to do and have been doing in Zcash as well. PIR, yeah.
I think we're actually planning an episode on that particular topic, so.
Perfect. Yeah, it's one of the most exciting things, where it's shockingly usable. We've been doing it for things that more than 1,000x the size of all Zcash transactions to date, and it works great.
Cool.
Very cool.
So the problem in a nutshell is basically, you have to download all these things, all these transactions. So we need to change the payment flows, and in order for you to no longer need to download every transaction on the chain, but we also need you to we need a second property where I could fix the first one. Because what are we solving for? If I pay you, how do you figure you got paid? And there's like two kind of somewhat simple answers. Because we're a private payment system, so no one knows who it's from, who it's to, or how much it is. Easy answer one, you download every single transaction in the chain and check if it's a payment to you. But that doesn't scale for obvious reasons. Second easy answer is, well, why don't I just tell you I paid you? Like, I can just send you a signal message that, hey, Anna, I sent you $10 for coffee. And that would solve this.
Yep.
But there's a problem.
Well, that's not guaranteed that you did it, right?
No, it can be guaranteed. Like, I can send a link that you click, your wallet opens the link, and it's for sure received.
Okay.
The problem you get in there is two big problems. One is, what if this like communication channel fails? My phone breaks, your phone breaks. Do we have money lost in the middle?
Ooh, you have to be there to receive it somehow.
Yeah, or you have a central server who receives it, which is how every messaging app works, and you try to do a bunch of work to hide the data you pulled from the central server.
Okay.
Second big problem, when you want to, let's say you've lost everything, like your phone's broken and you have your 12-word mnemonic, you want to go, put it into a new phone or a new laptop and go recover your funds. Well, if you find out you got paid off of Signal messages or some messaging app in the background, how do you get your money back? It's no longer 12 words, everything.
Okay.
So we fix both of these problems using this private information retrieval trick. The idea is actually quite similar to Aztecs, which I'm familiar with it, where we segment the problem into two camps. How do we do the first payment, the first time I ever pay you, and build a way for that to be recoverable? So when you recover from your mnemonic, we've built a system so that you can figure out you got a first payment from me. Second thing we do is, for all subsequent payments, if we've talked to each other once in the past, we can kind of agree on a key we can agree on a kind of infinite sequence of random numbers. I'll call these tags. And for my second payment to you, I'll use like the second tag in the sequence. Third payment, I'll use the third tag. Your wallet, when recovering, can just know to look for this tag because it knows what the tag numbers will be, but it needs to find, is there any transaction on the blockchain with this tag? So only me and you know what numbers correspond to us, but then any node can index what are the tags it's seen, and we build a way to privately ask that question. That way you privately ask the question is PIR.
Okay. This isn't what I'm just trying to remember because like we talked about this like pruning the nullifier set that Ian and Sean have worked on. That's something else, right?
That's an unrelated. So that's a cool problem. That's like long term. I think that's further out in the problem stack for usability, but it's fantastic because there's another problem in Zcash or like systems. Every single transaction you do makes the entire state of the blockchain bigger.
With these nullifiers, which are very small, but eventually these things can add up.
Exactly. Yeah. A billion nullifiers, you get to a billion, or say you can get to 2 billion nullifiers with a billion transactions. So that would cost you 64 gigabytes of data. So if we get to hundreds of billions of transactions, then we get to very big numbers of database sizes.
Okay.
So we need to long-term solve that as well, so our nodes like stay very usable. And Tachyon's actually a very brilliant solution to this. And then we have a second problem, which we need to kill the shielded sink. We need to kill shielded sink in a way that still lets you recover all your funds.
Okay.
So the latter is where this like PIR stuff comes in, so you can recover from your 12 words, find all your funds, and and still spend money.
Right.
You don't have to have any of this signal messaging or like off-chain messaging.
But are these kind of related? Because like one is about the bloat of the entire system and indexing it, or like being able to retrieve information. And then this one is like, these do seem sort of similar. Would you have to adjust the PIR in order to like work with the new system?
Yes. What's funny is this came up the kind of the first time Sean and I talked about this, where, actually brilliant. I'm just going to come to people and no one's like actually asking this connection. So Sean told you about like how there's evolving nullifiers. We have to like kind of update the nullifier every epoch. This PIR thing is very clever, but it does have a big cost. There's a reason this has not been done kind of everywhere. It's that what's happening, it's kind of the server has this database. The client is asking for some entry in the database, but the server has to tell the client this entry without knowing what the client asked for. In order to do that, the server has to do some math operation on every single database element. So normally, if I ask for like, I've got a terabyte database, I ask for an entry, it's very quick. Depending on what like level of abstraction you use, it's like O of 1 or log n, like some constant amount of time, basically. Here, no, it grows your database size. But the server where it grows the database size, but the anonymity also gets better the more entries there are. So for the evolving nullifiers, sort of updating nullifier question, It's not super clear to me why you wouldn't want to update this every hour, other than like it makes a lot of client queries. It's like more CPU work. Sorry, not even more client queries. It's more server work to do a lot of update proofs.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of funny. We have these, or you can make it really long, so you have less client interactions, less bandwidth. So we have slightly different usages of kind of time boxing history between this PIR stuff and these evolving nullifiers. The word here is oblivious syncing services.
Okay.
So we need to make these two chunks of time the same and make these kind of shared across both systems.
I'm going to be doing an episode soon on verifiable databases, and it's like doing kind of information, like proving something about a database without like knowing what's in it in a way. And I'm wondering, like in the Zcash specific context, is this a technique that could be used here, or is it already happening?
That one's more like, I think, if I recall correctly, that one is more like providing a ZK proof of correctness that the thing has been correctly run and like not revealing the underlying data. This is like the opposite case where it's like what you don't trust the person who hosts the database. So in that one, you don't trust the person who hosts it to correctly give you the output, but you do trust them on the private data.
Okay.
Right. This is the opposite. This is like you trust them to give you the output because you can verify the output in some other way. But you don't trust them to not like leak what record you are looking at.
I see.
Right? Because like just the fact that you are searching for a specific record in this database is leaking information about who you are.
Makes sense.
Right. Whereas like in the other case, it's like more about general queries, like SQL queries.
Nice.
Okay, so we ended off with like we tied off like PIR connects, we have to make this PIR database time the same as the oblivious syncing service time to get both goals solved for scaling.
And where are we at? Like I know that in Tachyon, there is, I mean, I don't know if this nullifier kind of pruning, not non-pruning, they said it's not pruning. So I was like, okay. Technique to avoid pruning the nullifier set, but actually shrinking it potentially. I don't know if that's actually going to be included in Tachyon, but is the PIR stuff going to be included?
Okay, so this is an evolving target. The dream is end of this year, we get these evolving nullifier proofs in the oblivious sync service in, and this PIR stuff.
Okay.
In order to give basically to fully unblock scale. But for scaling, the biggest bottleneck for scaling is you kill off shielded sync. That you can now get your final transactions without downloading everything in history. Because then it's just a straightforward, like, how do you scale consensus to scale TPS directly? So we're trying to hit like getting several hundred shielded TPS on chain like this year. So one of the biggest unlocks is one of the precursors for the oblivious syncing service and all the Tachyon work is recursive proofs, recursive SNARKs for everything. So that's for sure needed. And we're trying to get like everything together. PIR, oblivious sync, and these evolving nullifiers to get kind of this dream system of no more shielded sync. It's kind of the theme of this Manhattan Project for privacy.
In that interview with Sean, though, we also talked about like what an upgrade would look like for users. And he said that like there's parts of Tachyon that will really fundamentally change the way these wallets work.
Interesting.
So
it's like I think this is a pretty major upgrade coming.
Yeah. So, okay, I can tell you a little bit more about this. This comes down to the problem of how do you make the first payment? So I kind of sketched verbally, it's maybe not super convincing, that if we've paid once before and you can figure out the first payment from me to you, you can then find every subsequent payment. So now we have to solve, how do you find out that I paid you for the first time?
In this case, you want this to be find outable. It's like you're not...
Yeah, I want Dave pays, Alice pays Bob.
Yeah.
Bob needs to find out that Alice paid him.
Okay. This is solving for this like signal problem. Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Like that. Now it's like, okay, assuming we have the first payment, we're good, solved by this like previous PIR, I believe is the name that you had for it.
Yeah.
Now the question is, okay, cool, but like, sick, we still have to find the first payment, bro. Like, can we fix that?
Okay. So here's basically the options that have no risk. And then, no risk basically means there's no intermediate state that can like have no fund, that can lead to funds lost. Then there's things that can like trade off adding more. So the first way is Alice wants to pay Bob. Bob sends Alice a dynamic address. So it's an address that's unique to this payment. And I include like 32 random bytes. So if you're familiar with I was calling these tags earlier. Bob tells Alice basically, pay me with this tag. And Bob can know to look for that tag with PIR if he has to recover from mnemonic. So then Alice has a payment at that tag. Bob's constantly looking for that tag to figure out did he get paid. That's kind of way one, where you have a dynamic address or dynamic QR code. And we're at a conference, you scan my QR code, I give you a different QR code. It's kind of the idea. That flow, you can also, back to this Alice Bob example, where Bob gives Alice a dynamic thing. There's also the normal flow of invoicing, right? Like if I invoice a company, I say like, here's this like bill, pay me $100, and like here's this invoice ID, and it's kind of the same thing of here's this custom data for where I want to get paid. That's another way to model this. Two mental models, invoices. Second one is sending you a unique address. Second solution is, well, Bob can recover funds if he's talked to Alice before. Okay, we're in a situation where he hasn't talked to Alice. Well, what if there is a third party?
Eve. No, but Eve's always the bad one.
Yeah, I was starting with R.
Charlie
or
something.
R for relayer. So there's a third party, Royce.
Robert.
Who's
Raven.
Raven. Okay, Raven's a cooler name.
Raven's cooler.
Okay. So Bob's talked to Raven before. So in Bob's address, he also puts Raven's address. Raven's this relayer. So Alice wants to pay Bob. Alice hasn't talked to Bob before, but Raven promises to always kind of be online. So Alice talks to Raven, or Alice sends us like a micropayment to Raven called like, I don't know, 1/10 of a cent or something. And then says like, forward my public key to Bob on the channel Bob can see. So Alice talks to Raven. Raven sends a payment to Bob, like a micropayment called like, again, like fraction of a cent. And then Raven sends a proof to Alice that, hey, I communicated your key to Bob, so Bob will be able to recover this. Now go send the full money to Bob. So now let's say Bob lost his keys and has to recover from mnemonic. Well, Bob's already solved the Raven communication somehow in the past. So Bob will see Alice's public key because Raven told Bob Alice's public key. Raven gave a proof to Alice that she did this. So now Bob will then be able to find Alice's payment.
Yeah.
So this is kind of like you have a relayer in your address somehow.
It's playing it's very similar to me it's akin to the role of the sync server in like local first software, right?
Exactly. That's a brilliant analogy.
That's a cool
Only
link.
keeps track of the deltas, and it doesn't matter whether it's online or not. You can switch to any sync server you want, whatever. But the point is like, you need some mediation between two nodes, which you don't know will be online constantly. So it's nice to have this as a service. That's actually really fucking cool specifically for like enabling this like cold start problem. That's brilliant. I was going to say something much dumber, which is you could also just have ephemeral data which runs on the blockchain. You have like a data availability style layer, and then you do this. But it's exactly the same service. I mean, fundamentally, the point is here, of course, is much more general than like it needs to run on the chain itself.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
One difference with the chain version that's kind of interesting is you don't need to provide a proof that you have sent the like public key to somebody else. Is like the chain itself, the fact that there's inclusion in it is enough to provide the proof, right?
Oh, that's true, because you could have the Raven to Bob communication something not be encrypted, and you just see that they sent Alice encrypts the data of her pub key, and so she sees that her encrypted data is used. If Raven doesn't re-encrypt, that works.
Yeah, I think so. And then but also in general, you could just have the chain itself like functions as its own. Like I have sent this thing to Bob because Bob can obviously access the chain over some 2-week period or something, right? For example.
That could also work. But if we're assuming an onlineness, where the part of the goal is we want to have no online assumption of Bob.
Right.
We want Bob to be like, he thought everything's working. A year later, has to go.
I see. So you specifically want, like, you actually want the long-termness here. That's right, yeah. Okay, cool.
Oh, there's one other observation I forgot to make, where I've been saying this in terms of Alice pays Bob, but if Bob pays Alice for the first time, like the first payment to them is from Bob to Alice, Bob can always find that really easily. So we don't have to solve that problem, and you figure that out with nullifiers. Because Bob can figure out when did he spend his nullifier. So therefore, Bob can always find transactions where he's the first payment.
Okay.
So all of our problem is just figuring out when the first time you receive money from someone. And this is the biggest case where this is a problem is like, hey, here's my address on Twitter. Please donate to me. That's kind of the use case that's really hard, which this relayer or local sync server solves.
Interesting.
Because everything else is kind of easy because it's not a big... Zottle, the app, already gives a custom address for every payment.
Zotl being the new Zashi, the new wallet.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that already live? Have they launched that? Okay. Because I knew they had like done the company, but I didn't know if the product was already out.
Your app should just rebrand now. Like there
really?
should be some
Zashi should be. Oh, wow.
Yeah. This should be live. It happened to my phone a few days ago.
Okay, crazy. In terms of the work that you're doing, like you're now contributing to it, but is your company, like, are you working on a specific part or project?
So I'm basically working on whatever I think is like the biggest to make the UX of this all in. So there's a shielded sync component, which is really big. There's a second, and there's two other kind of big things. The second big thing is the UX of Zcash. Zcash is a proof of work blockchain with 75-second block time. So I've basically been making a proposal to first drop this 25 seconds. And then we want to be doing follow-on work to like, one, keep dropping block time, but over time, figure out some way to make a pre-conf-like thing from the miners. Because a lot of UX just needs like a good one conf guarantee or even like something zero conf that's better, that has like, for instance, we have 80% of hash power saying, hey, I promise I'll include this. No slashing if I don't. That's good enough for most $10 payments. Or like, and then you can start getting really good UXs. Right now, the problem for MasterCard has like a rule where if in testing you take more than, I think it's like 1.5 seconds to like respond, you don't get accepted as a credit card.
Sure.
Because your network has to be fast. So a 25-second block time card already blocks you from being a credit card. It's too slow. So, but these pre-comps could now start doing that for like small, even like medium-sized payments. Like, and now we can get kind of the UX we need. You know, the whole meme of, you don't want to wait an hour for coffee, paying for coffee. Okay, let's go solve that. Let's go make like, there's a bunch of different solutions. You got to go to discuss a bunch of trade-offs to like decide which one, but then make that happen. And the third thing is getting Zcash post-quantum. So what's kind of cool is you can first be post-quantum recoverable, which means that if a quantum computer came tomorrow, we could just freeze the shielded pools and you could be able to recover your funds. You could we could make a new SNARK that correctly proves that you own these funds. So the update you need to make that work in Zcash is tiny. It's just a super small wallet update. So where we are right now, even if we drop block times like 10 seconds or even 25 seconds, it's too slow to be a credit card. So we'll have to do some sort of pre-confirmation tricks or finality gadget. There's a ton of ways you can do this. You could imagine there's some committee of miners based on hash power, like the trailing hash power of the last 6 hours. And if 2/3 of these miners say, hey, we'll include this transaction in the next block, then you as a user are pretty convinced you will be included in the next block. So there's a bunch of ideas of this form, or you could be inspired by Solana shreds. There's no consensus on how to do it. There's a bunch of ideas. So after we drop the block time, it'll be time to discuss those to figure out how do you get much better UXs for users. And then the third big problem we have, as all of crypto, is how do you get post-quantum? So to be post-quantum has two parts. We can very easily get your funds to be post-quantum recoverable, meaning that quantum computer exists tomorrow, we can freeze the pool, and then you can still safely recover your funds and them in the post-quantum shielded pool, also without revealing your balance. So that's quantum recoverability. It's a really tiny wallet update. It's actually, this should happen pretty soon. And so then as long as you touch your funds after the wallet update, it's safe. The quantum computer cannot make you lose your money. The second thing is making a new shielded pool that's post-quantum. That one we actually have more time for, thanks to quantum recoverability. And so over the next 2 years, I'm sure we get a fully post-quantum shielded pool. First, we get all the recursive proofs working in the easier mode with the curves. And we tried the high scale this year. Like the dream is we get to 500 TPS, shielded sync fully killed, and like much faster UX for actually getting transactions.
Going back to like you originally were a ZK researcher. Do you think, is ZK solved? Like now everything we've talked about with you is engineering. It's like implementing these things and the things around the ZK systems. Do you feel like is it finished? Or do you think there'll be some breakthroughs?
I don't think the zkVMs have gotten it right yet. Where there's a huge amount of like work that went into the modern CPU chip. Like, how do you make the modern CPU so fast? And this involves a lot of like instruction set architecture, SIMD, etc. And I feel like this is a huge amount of complexity in design. maybe if you wear your theory hat, oh, it's all just constants. If you wear like the art of like making CPU chips, no, this is like 40 years of work, if not more. The Apple M1 chip was a huge leap over what existed before.
And you feel like zkVMs need to achieve something similar in that way?
Yeah. I don't think
Wow.
a similar level of like CPU type optimization, how do we do these bulk operations really quickly, has happened yet. Or it's obvious and people care about it and work on it. But yeah, I still think there's a ways to go. I'm actually curious about your take on this, Guillermo. I feel like you're also even closer to most of the zkVM teams than I am.
No, I mean, I agree. I think like zkVMs are. I mean, I have a lot of thoughts about the exact mechanics of zkVMs, how we do them today, why they work, why they don't work, whether we've even adapted them to the systems that we're proving. It's very weird that we spent a bunch of time compiling down to some random language and then use that to like compile back down to like something else. And then only after that do we compile to like some like weird thing, which then compiles to a PCS. And I'm like, what the fuck are we doing here, right? It's like 6 layers of abstraction for the sake of abstraction, essentially. And like, I get it because you have to balance out doing it quickly using developer tooling and all this stuff. But it's like, come on, like, do we really expect like in the long arc of history, we're going to have the 6 layers of abstraction, each of which are just not actually contributing that much and eating through this entire stack? Like the answer is no.
Yeah. We have very little PMF of ZK outside of blockchains, especially this recursive stuff that's high speed. This client stuff's a very different problem for privacy. And then for all these on-chain environments, you're constrained by what the blockchain support. And like, there's not been much demand for, here is very long compute that I'm going to need repeatedly run. I'm going to be willing to pay for a 6-month even research project to optimize that. The closest real domain path outside of blockchain that I can think of is the Google age verification thing, where they spun up an internal team to like, hey, let me scan your ID card and give a ZKP that you're above 18 or whatever from Real Passport. And that's like a very small client-side proof. It's not the same ballpark of zkVMs.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's still to me a big question about really, really big competition. I mean, there's always the joke of like, you know, Intel would make bigger and better chips, and it's not because like there was an obvious immediate need for bigger and better chips. Just like someone would figure out something to do with the like bigger and better stuff. But I agree. Right now, the like main reason the people are not using are using ZK that is not blockchain related is essentially these privacy preserving like ID like technologies, which obviously I have some thoughts about. Some good, some bad, but yeah. So, okay, anyways, given all of this, I still have the big question, Dave, for you, which is, let's say you could wave the magic wand and just like have the stuff for this year, next year, even a year after done. And it could be whatever you wanted.
Yeah.
What would Zcash or privacy enabled technologies, or what does it look like? Like, what's the like, you know, Vitalik style manifesto level vision that you would expect happen here?
Okay, so first let me focus on Zcash, right? Maybe the manifesto. Zcash is in the hands of like billions of people on the planet where we're using it for everyday like private payments. So this means thousands of TPS on the chain. No one's mentioning this like quantum word anymore. We're just done with it. It's all solved. And then it's all fast. Like same way no one talks about what's the clearing time of a credit card. No one thinks about the block time of Zcash. This is like not a property we have with like even Ethereum mainnet today. We're hit on the 12 seconds repeatedly. We need to fix that. It's like all of your normal actions, super quick. And so that's Zcash, the chain. And then maybe more broadly, societally, I want to be building the world where you own kind of all your digital data and you always do proofs about your data besides like, you know, what's definitional to sharing it. I even dream of a world where there's a Twitter fork or Twitter competitor where the length of time your eyeballs spend on a given tweet is not Twitter's data. It's your data that talks to your local LLM. And your local LLM queries some database to say, like, here's the rough shape of content I want. And so I dream of this world where you have all of your data locally owned and all this sort of global interactions gets privacy. Even more concrete than that's we probably are actually going to do. There's all sorts of ways you can do subscriptions, like, hey, I need to pay for an RPC node, etc. And importantly, an important part of subscriptions for any API service is that there's rate limits. We're going to get all of these need to be private of, okay, I'm going to provision or pay for 1,000 queries per day from, I don't call it, ZK Infura or ZK Alchemy. Okay, I can do every single query from an anonymous IP, so it can't be correlated. And attached is some data that's privacy preserving that lets ZK Alchemy know that I'm obeying the rate limits, but they have no idea which user I am. So we're going to need like zk subscriptions for like SaaS stuff all across Stack. We have private P2P anonymity solutions, and you own all your own data, all your subscriptions fully private. The merchants, whatever, can like get their security properties they need, e.g., they need rate limits to provide service, but not know who you are.
I think it's so important and so timely. I don't know if you're hearing, but all of these companies that people have been reliant on for years and years, their communication rails in certain cases, are making decisions post you signing up for them about what they're going to do with your data. And I don't know, like somebody recently shared that like Instagram, their chat apparently had been encrypted. It's going to be unencrypted soon. And it's like, I don't use the Instagram chat much, so I personally don't care. But I know other people do. Like they keep in touch with friends there. And that's not a choice they get to make. And the reason is like for AI training. And you're just like, fuck you guys. Excuse my language. But like all of those people I know are just going to be fed into this machine, and they did not, like, they were already signing up maybe to be like advertised to. Maybe they had agreed implicitly to that. Like, okay, I'm going to get shitty ads. That's the free software model. But they hadn't signed up to be like eaten by the AI machine. And I think that's really sick. I think we're too late, to be honest. But I hope we can build stuff soon. I think I've mentioned this on the show before, but like medical data, like how is it that these industries that pride themselves on privacy are like so incredibly unsafe? And all of your medical data should be in your own possession. Like, why is it sitting on servers in different places? It doesn't make any sense. That's my end rant. Dave, thanks for coming on the show, man. Catching up with us, sharing the story of Osmosis, sharing the story of sort of your return to privacy. I am so happy to see you in our channels, be more active again, because I feel like you were more off in Cosmos land for a while. So yeah, welcome back into the fold. Or I guess you've always been here. I shouldn't say that.
Way more now than before. This is
Okay, good.
I truly believe this is the most important problem to work on.
Very good.
Very, very cool.
All right, I want to say thank you to the podcast team, Rachel, Henrik, Hector, and Tanya, and to our listeners. Thanks for listening.